Good morning. Thank you for joining us for the Organizational Grant Program Grant Reporting and Invoicing webinar. My name is Rosalind Escobar. I'll be your host along with Laura Guerrero Nieto, Grants and Professional Development Associate. We will be discussing the requirements and instructions on how to fill out report forms, as well as post-report audit instructions, and we will take questions and answers at the end. Thank you for joining us. The purpose of the day is basically to provide a little bit of guidance on how to access all of these materials, how to provide these materials to us in your reports, and how to fill out the information that we will be asking for. Before I begin, I just want to make sure to point out that we have a list on the third page here of the PowerPoint. We have a list of documents that may be helpful for you for navigating the reporting and invoicing process. Number one, we have the reporting requirements, and all of this is hosted on our Manage Your Grant section of our website for OGP. So we have reporting requirements that is listed here on this webpage, as well as the OGP terms and instructions, Exhibit B, which is basically written. It's a document that is going to point out everything that I will be saying during the webinar, so you're going to definitely want to download Exhibit B if you haven't done so already. It was something that was sent to you in your contract. And then to access the actual reporting forms, the online reporting forms, you would go to Fluid Review by visiting www.lacountyarts.org/apply. So let's talk about the OGP timeline. OGP contracts follow the county fiscal year calendar. So we are talking about a July 1 to June 30th year. So all activities that you will be reporting on will have happened between July 1, 2018 and June 30, 2019. These are 2-year grants, and this is support for projects happening during a period of 2 years, but you're reporting on the very first year of activities in this report for year 1. These grants are meant to provide support for organizational capacity. They are meant to boost the organization in a way that is helpful for the overall mission of the organization, and your project scope can be overarching. If you feel like maybe you have some changes to your project scope, I will talk about what you would need to do in order to create a project amendment, and we'll cover that in a couple more slides. In terms of getting started with your report, there's a couple of attachments you'll need to have ready to either review or to attach into your report. So number one, you definitely want to have the copy of the OGP contract and adjusted grant budget that you filled out in fall of 2018. That document will help just for ensuring that you've got the right project scope, that you're reporting on activities that are covered within that project scope, and that you've got the right amount for your invoice, as well as looking at what the general information is that we have in our records for paying out that invoice. So definitely download or get a hold of your OGP contract and adjusted grant budget. Make sure that's on your desktop. You're going to need to have a copy of your thank you letter for that your organization sent to the LA County Supervisor. So if you haven't already done so, make sure that you create a thank you letter for the Board of Supervisors, at the very least your supervisorial district's board supervisors, so that you can send that out before you provide the report to the grants team. So all of the instructions for creating that letter are in Exhibit B, including the addresses for the Board of Supervisors. So make sure that you make sure you send that letter out, and that you keep a copy of it to upload into the form called support materials. And we'll talk about this again in a couple more slides. Proof of recognition. You are required as a grantee to provide a copy of a program, brochure, website screenshot, or other marketing materials that show that you have that you have recognized the Arts Commission as a sponsor using the logo, using our official logo. So if you haven't done that, make sure that you have done that at the very least on your website, and that you provide us with a screenshot of that. And lastly, we'll need images, which can be between 1 and 3. So at the minimum 1, at the most 3 high-quality images of activities or events that have happened during the fiscal year that you're reporting on. And we know that sometimes, or a lot of organizations are using this funding to support staff salary or to support organizational capacity. However, we don't want to see an image of the person whose staff salary you're supporting or the office. We want to see actual images of activities and programming happening. So make sure that you provide something that's appropriate, that highlights the programs and artistic work of the organization. All right, and so to begin the reporting piece, make sure that you are providing information that focuses on the process of implementing and measuring your OGP project. You'll report on what you expect from the funded OGP project, how you define success, and how you will keep track of your progress. You will also report on the kinds of activities you have completed so far, and you should communicate how you are reflecting on the progress of the OGP project. So progress and current outcomes are what we are asking about here in the report. We'll take a look at the narrative questions in detail, but that's an overview of what we will be talking about during the report. The deadline for these reports is May 15th, so you want to make sure that you are providing this final report and invoice by that date. Your final invoice is also due that day. You may have already invoiced or submitted a partial invoice, and so you will be invoicing us for the final last piece of year one, first half of your award. Note that all OGP funds are reimbursable, and that your project expenses, including matching fund expenses, must be expended or incurred by June 30th, 2019, the end of the fiscal year for the county. Again, refer to Exhibit B for all the details about reporting and invoicing processes, as they basically lay out everything I'm talking about here in this webinar. So, your contract that we sent back to you in the fall of 2018 includes some very important information. So look at the first page of that contract to see the details about what we have in our database for you. So your legal name, your DUNS and vendor ID number, the purpose and scope of your grant, and the amount of your grant. The project description describes the services and activities you agree to provide through the completion of your grant. The agreement term provides the expiration date, and the maximum grant request is the total grant amount you have received for the 2 years. A reminder that you also submitted an attachment to this contract, which was the adjusted grant budget, and that adjusted grant budget was provided online through the Fluid Review system. So if you don't have access to that, hopefully you have all downloaded that document. But if you didn't, or you need to locate that, please email us at grants@arts.lacounty.gov. It is helpful to look at the adjusted grant budget that you submitted to refer back to how you originally proposed to use this funding. So look at that document, and as I said earlier, in some cases the project expenses may have been modified, and that's okay. If the project expenses are completely different, contact the grant staff before submitting your report, because it is possible that we may need to create an amendment for you. So before that happens, we want to make sure we have a conversation with you. So just keep us in the loop on where you're at with your project expenses as you look back on what you originally said you were going to do with the funds, and how maybe that has changed during the year. Reminder that you can invoice for up to 50% of the award in the first year and 50% in the second year, and you must show what the matching expenses were in each year in the report. So that's how this adjusted grant budget will help you, just to basically match up how you've sent this out versus how you originally were planning to do that. Grantee matching funds must be at least equal to your grant amount each year, but cannot exceed it. Can exceed it. Should not be less than half of your grant each year. The matching expenses task of your report should detail this information. OGP grants are reimbursable grants, meaning you must be able to spend half of the grant award and the dollar-for-dollar matching funds each year before receiving the reimbursement. So just keep that in mind, that when you fill out your matching expenses budget, the total for each line item should make sense. So I will go through that in detail in a couple more slides. So to begin to access the report, you're going to visit www.lacountyarts.org/apply. The Fluid Review System is basically where we host all of our OGP forms and applications. So make sure that you log in with your original Fluid Review account information. If you don't have access to that, maybe you lost your username, or maybe the person that originally filled out the application is no longer with you, then email grants@arts.lacounty.gov so that we can reset your account. And we can do that by going into the back end and reassigning the account to the newer person or the newer staff. If basically all you need is the password, you can actually click on the forgot your password ? Link under the sign-in box. Reminders that it's very helpful to use a Word document to cut and paste your narrative answers into the report. Just in case something happens with the system, you don't lose your work in the middle. So make sure you're cutting and pasting from a Word document. You want to make sure that you have given yourself at least 5 days prior to the deadline to avoid any last-minute stress. And another reminder to just save as you're going along. Save and continue editing as much as possible. Our system does work on a cloud and it can freeze. And so we don't want you to lose information as you're going through this. So make sure that you're clicking save quite often. So once you've logged in, you're going to see the My Grants or Grants dashboard. You're going to scroll down to log into your award information. So scroll down to your grants section and then find the OGP application that is labeled as awarded, manage a grant round 1, invoicing and reporting. Click on the application ID in blue font or edit, and that will take you into the manage your grants section. So once you're in that Manager Grant Round 1 Invoicing and Reporting dashboard, you'll see a list of documents. Some are optional and some are required. So the first 3 are optional. You do not need to submit any of that in order to provide us with a report. Those are basically optional forms that are there for you in case you need them. But in terms of the report and invoicing process, all you need to do is fill out those bottom 4 tasks. The Year 1 Final Report Narrative Questions, the Year 1 Report Matching Expenses, and the Year 1 Supplemental Materials, as well as the Year 1 Report Invoice. Make sure that you've completed all 4 of those pieces highlighted on the screen here. Once you've completed them, you'll see that the status will turn to green complete, and then you'll want to make sure to submit it all. So to begin, you're going to look at first the matching expenses. You will click into that form, and you'll see a table with 3 columns. Column 1 is the line items that you're going to choose from. Column 2, OGP Year 1 Grant, This is where you're going to enter the amount of funds that you spent from the grant award on each of these line items. And then column 3 is the year 1 match, how you spent the matching funds, the dollar for dollar matching funds in the first year. So you're going to basically provide that information so that we have a snapshot of how these expenses lined up. You don't have to have a dollar for dollar match in every single line item. But what we do need to see is that at the bottom of the 2 columns, OGP year 1 grant and year 1 match, that they are at least equal to each other. So year 1 grant and year 1 match should at least be equal, or year 1 match can be more than year 1 grant. Column 2 can be less than column 3, but cannot be more than column 3, the totals. So once you filled out that table, you'll want to then provide a little bit more information, the sources of matching funds. So how did you match these fundings? Was it ticket revenue? Was it donations? Was it grants? Provide a list of the sources of matching funds, and then if you had any line items under G, other expenses, you're going to want to make sure we have a little more information there about what those other expenses were. And then you will certify how you used dollar for dollar match from either earned or contributed income, and then save and exit when you're done. This will take you back to the dashboard. Once you're back in the dashboard, you'll see there will be a list, or the rest of the documents that you're going to fill out. So year 1 narrative questions is next, and Lara will give us a quick overview of what these narrative questions are asking and how to fill them out. Take it away, Lara.